the Strat Ultra 2 here for a couple of weeks now. I've also had the chance to gig it, so I wanted to weigh in with some additional comments and thoughts after the initial demo video that I did. And I don't want to spend too much time rehashing what I talked about in that demo video, but while I was in Sydney in July playing with Club Cabaret, I had the chance to go to the Fender offices and try out a bunch of new gear, as well as filming some content. I didn't have my usual rig with me there. So while I liked the way those videos sounded, there were certain things that I just didn't have access to that I have access to here. Also, I played at the Noosa Guitar Festival over the weekend and did a set of Hendrix songs with Simon Gardner and Tim Gaze, who are legends of the Aussie music scene and amazing players. I did a couple of workshops, and I just decided to take this guitar and basically road test it and see what I could get out of it, because doing a set of Hendrix songs on a Strat makes a lot of sense, but I also like having that extra gear where you've got a humbucker in the bridge of a Strat, modern features like the 2-point locking trem, the noiseless pickups, the locking tuners on here, and that super comfortable compound radius so that I could do bends up high on it, but still have chordal work be really nice and smooth. And the first thing after the gig that struck me was that I didn't really think about the way the guitar was set up. I could just go and play it. Like the Fender modern C-shaped neck is just very, very comfortable. I've got a 70s Strat that has more of that U shape about it, which can get a little bit uncomfortable, especially if it's a little bit cold. Like there's just a bit of a breeze coming through or something like that at night when you're playing. I do notice it doing the thumb over the top thing. I can get a little bit of like cramp and discomfort in there, which I didn't get on this. Also, I'm not much of a vibrato bar person, but I found using the vibrato bar on this was super easy, and the guitar stayed in tune. That's the most important thing with any guitar, is when you're playing it live, the conditions that you're under are a lot more unpredictable. A lot of the time it's either really cold or really warm on stage, or sometimes it fluctuates again because someone's left a window open and there's a breeze blowing through. But it was super solid, and I'll put up some footage from that gig at the end or in the middle of this video whenever we get to it. But I was able to do the Hendrix style thing. I'm not saying that it was anything like an authentic Hendrix show from my point anyway, but then I could do my thing, which ultimately is why they booked me, which is my thing is just kind of like a budget Ty Tabor or George Lynch thing, right? So I could get those really nice wide clear chords out of the guitar that I like, but then I could also do the ridiculous overbend and vibrato stuff. And on the Ty Tabor thing, doesn't that remind you of that Zion or Zon guitar, whatever he was playing around the Dogman era? Just the finish, I really, really dig. The other thing as well, having that extended ultra cutaway in there is killer. I could get all the way up to the 22nd fret on here. In fact, just having a 22nd fret is a nice bonus over my old Strat. So I think the guitar performed really, really well. Western Australia is a very dry environment, and then Queensland is a lot more humid. They're both quite hot, so you're going from hot and dry to hot and humid, but I found that I was just able to slap a set of 10s on this, adjust the springs on here, give the truss rod like maybe a 16th or an 1/8 of a turn on there, and the guitar's playing great. So what I want to do now is just give you some comparisons between my 1977 Strat and the Fender Player 2 Strat. I'll give you some thoughts after that, but in general, this was awesome. This made my life very, very easy. Super solid. I think it sounded great. I didn't have any noise or EMF, anything like that. And it was like having cheat codes on for playing a Hendrix gig, right? It's a Strat, it looks the part, but also it's got all the modern features on there, which were really enjoyable. So let's hear some sounds side by side, and then I'll just give you my thoughts on what this guitar sounds like and kind of where it sits relative to some of my other Strats. Before we talk about the sounds, feel-wise and overall construction-wise, I think the nicest thing that I can say about this guitar is that it feels more than the sum of its parts. Strats are such a great modding platform, but sometimes they just feel like a bunch of parts chucked together, whereas with this, it feels like they want to design a guitar with a very specific player and set of sounds in mind, and they put it together, and it doesn't immediately feel like something I want to pull apart and mod, and it's just perfect for doing this kind of thing, which I obviously love so much. That's pretty interesting. I feel like the Sir Michael Landau pickups that I've got in the 77 Strat really, really work well for that sort of plastic 80s style clean sound, as you would expect, but also for gained up rock stuff. They have this character about them which isn't too harsh, which maybe for the cleaner stuff kind of results in it sounding a bit odd or a bit un-Strat-like. But when you're running it with loads of gain, like I often like to do, it's just got this character in there which has that typical Strat bite and clarity, but it's also kind of nice and fat and satisfying to play. Contrasting that with the Player 2, I think this sits in between those two guitars where you could hear the really plasticky clean sounds on the Player 2 or maybe a little bit too thin. Same thing with the gained up sounds, but then for those just kind of vanilla cleans or the rock crunch, is a really good guitar. And I think for the money, the Player 2 is pretty hard to beat in the Fender lineup. You know, this does cost 2, nearly 3 times the amount of money, but the overall small tweaks that you end up getting on there, like the fact that it comes with strap locks and you've got locking tuners and you have the saddles that don't dig into your palm on there. I think these pickups sound a little more robust and I don't know what the term means, but really it's like professional sounding. This whole thing feels way more like a high-end guitar, whereas the Player 2 is a good guitar. I would recommend that to anyone. If you just want a Strat and you want it to say Fender on the headstock, grab a Player 2. You can do mods to it. It's sort of the perfect platform to customize it. Whereas this feels more like straight out of the cage, that it just works, especially if you're a modern rock player. Very, very easy to play and very fast. I also like that bridge humbucker, when you tap it, you don't lose all the gas from it. You can get a kind of nice, big, greasy rock crunch out of it, but you can also tap it. And, doing something like Third Stone from the Sun, I ran this with the S1 switch in, and I basically just had a Strat with 3 single coils on there. I could kick in that big fuzz on there, and, it passed the smell test, put it that way. Again, the kind of mission statement for the gig wasn't necessarily to do Jimi Hendrix cosplay and make it sound as close as possible to the recording. It was more about taking the vibe and the looseness of a Hendrix gig and just getting a bunch of players who have never had the chance to play together, who probably complement one another nicely, just get up there and have a rip. And it was such an incredibly fun gig to do. For me, as somebody who does guitar YouTube demo videos, just having something that is stock as a representative sample that you can contrast against other things. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. I might be rambling here, but let me know your thoughts on the tones and the guitar in the comments section below. And if you've grabbed one of these, please let me know how you're liking it as well. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, there are links to the music that I make with my band Ragdoll and my Patreon as well. Have a great day, and I'll play you all out with, what am I going to do? Let's do something really, really simple.